They didn't take Earth seriously at first. To them, we were just another backwater planet on the outer rim of Sector J-19, barely above pre-quantum technology, with no known wormhole access and a population still arguing over borders, climate, and which color flag mattered more. The Galactic Empire had catalogued our existence nearly 2 centuries ago and deemed us non-integral to future expansion. But that was before the Lunaris incident, before the message, before Earth decided to stand up and tell the universe, no more. It started with a single event, a diplomatic accident, they claimed. An Empire scouting ship, the Jakaran Dawn, dropped out of hyperspace just outside Pluto's orbit, violating the planetary quarantine protocols that Earth had quietly enacted a year earlier. We never heard about that protocol on the news, not back then. Most of us still thought NASA was the height of space authority. What we didn't know was that after the incident in 2083, the so-called Mars silence, where our first Martian outpost went dark, Earth had quietly ramped up its defense capabilities in space, diverting resources into a shadow program called Project Aegis. The Jakaran Dawn didn't respond to hails. It simply drifted forward, scanning, recording. It was a test, a probe to gauge how much Earth had progressed. And in that test, the Empire made their first mistake. They underestimated humanity's paranoia. The second mistake was overconfidence. Earth fired the first shot. Not a missile, not a laser. No, we sent them a message, not through Empire standard comms either. We hijacked their broadcast network, forced every Imperial relay between here and the Orion Nexus to carry one singular looping phrase in over 400 languages. This territory is now closed to all non-Terran entities. Any violation will be treated as an act of war. It shocked them. The Empire wasn't used to being spoken to like that, especially not by what they still considered a juvenile species. The third mistake? They sent a diplomatic envoy with an escort of warships. On the morning of May 4th, 2091, a fleet of 27 Empire vessels entered our solar system under the pretense of establishing dialogue. The world didn't even know. The average person was sipping their morning coffee, doom-scrolling through news feeds, unaware that interstellar war was one hair trigger away. But the people in charge, the ones running Project Aegis, were ready. They didn't launch ships. They activated the net. No one really knew what it was at the time. It had been in development since 2059, a collaboration between rogue physicists, exiled AI engineers, and an underground alliance of nations tired of being sidelined by peacekeeping bureaucracy. The net wasn't just a shield. It was a statement. As the Empire's fleet reached within striking distance of Earth's moon, every ship in their armada lost power. Lights flickered, engines died, weapons systems went offline, a total blackout. In the dead silence of space, they floated helplessly, trapped like insects in amber. And then came the second message. You have violated Terran space. You will now return and inform your masters. Earth is no longer your frontier. Earth is sovereign. Earth is armed. Earth is awake. The message wasn't sent from the United Nations. It wasn't signed by a president or prime minister. It was signed simply, humanity. For the first time in galactic memory, the Empire turned back. But the story doesn't end there. It never does. That was just the first move in a long, dangerous game. And Earth had more cards up its sleeve than anyone could have guessed. The silence after the retreat was louder than any war cry. In the weeks that followed the Empire's humiliating withdrawal from Terran space, the galaxy held its breath. The Empire, a millennia-old hegemon that had crushed hundreds of civilizations into submission, had turned around at the doorstep of an insignificant dirt world without firing a single shot. And Earth, that same ignored backwater, had made a statement so bold, so absolute, that it forced the galactic order to question what it had just witnessed. Inside the Empire, panic bloomed beneath the surface like rot. On the exterior, their officials scoffed, dismissed the incident as a temporary power malfunction. But behind closed doors, they analyzed the telemetry, reran the data loops, and examined the lingering effects of whatever Earth had unleashed. The conclusion was terrifying. Earth had developed technology the Empire could not understand. What made it worse was how silently it had happened. Humanity had advanced under their radar, like an apex predator pretending to be prey until it could strike. The net wasn't just a localized field. Telemetry logs showed its effects reached out in a radius of 500,000 kilometers. The energy patterns were inconsistent with standard gravitational or electromagnetic interference. The best minds in the Empire's technotheum admitted, in hushed tones, that what Earth used wasn't even supposed to be possible. But while the galaxy whispered in stunned disbelief, Earth itself was not celebrating. Not publicly, at least. Behind closed doors, humanity's leaders, scattered between the Deep Coalition, the Terran Oversight Council, and remnants of the old national blocs, gathered in what would later be known as the Zurich Accord. For the first time in 2 centuries, there was unity, a common understanding that the moment of reckoning had arrived. We had poked the dragon. And now we had to prepare for the fire. General Marissa Coyote, the architect of Project Aegis, became the central figure in Earth's defense doctrine. She wasn't a politician. She didn't play the media games. But she was the kind of person you listened to when the skies started to darken. A former Black Ops strategist turned rogue physicist, Coyote had spent the last 30 years planning for the day humanity would be found. And more importantly, the day humanity would have to tell the galaxy to back off. At a classified emergency session broadcast only to key government and military nodes, Coyote didn't mince words. "We're not safe, not yet. The Empire retreated, yes, but not because they fear us, not yet. They're regrouping, calculating, looking for a weakness. We have their attention now, and that means they will come back, and next time they won't bring diplomats. They'll bring exterminators." She turned and tapped the holomap, which zoomed out to display the inner rim of the Empire's known territory. Red flares marked dozens of new mobilizations. Ships, stations, troop clusters. "We have 3 choices," she continued. 1. Submit. Beg for mercy. 2. Run. Hide in our solar system and wait to be burned. Or 3. Fight. Not just defend. We fight smart. We fight loud. And most of all, we fight in a way that makes them question whether it's worth it. The Zurich Accord voted unanimously. Option 3. Thus began the Human Directive, a global initiative to weaponize every ounce of Earth's unpredictable innovation. Scientists were pulled from every country, every private lab, every orbital facility. AI minds that had been sealed away under ethical bans were brought back online under controlled symbiotic arrangements. Cybernetic intelligence merged with human will to form what they called adaptive war systems, machines designed not for brute force, but for asymmetrical chaos. Humanity had always been known for one thing: turning desperation into invention. And the Empire? It was built on predictability, order, process, obedience. We were the exact opposite. Meanwhile, in the shadow corridors of galactic power, the Empire convened its Imperial High Strategium, a secret conclave of the 12 most powerful warlords, scientists, and prophets of the Dominion. They debated how to handle the Earth anomaly. Some wanted to wipe the planet out, glass it from orbit, and end the problem before it metastasized. Others cautioned that such a move could destabilize the perception of imperial invincibility. After all, if they had to destroy a primitive world just to save face, what would that say about their strength? A third faction, far more calculating, proposed a different tactic: infiltration. And so, while Earth fortified, the Empire dispatched operatives, shifters bred for mimicry, capable of disguising themselves as humans down to the cellular level. They were seeded into key Earth cities: Hong Kong, Lagos, São Paulo, London, New Chicago. Their objective? Gather intelligence, identify weakness, undermine Earth's cohesion. They failed. One by one, the shifters were discovered, not by governments, but by ordinary citizens. It turned out being human wasn't just about form. It was about instinct, chaos, irrational emotion. The infiltrators tried to mimic our behavior, but they missed the essence. They didn't understand sarcasm, or trauma responses, or why humans cried during commercials. They were uncanny, too perfect in a species defined by imperfection. And when the first shifter was exposed on live camera by a teenage girl in Lagos, who posted the footage to an unfiltered darknet site, the entire world took notice. Earth's population, for the first time, felt the invisible noose tightening. But it didn't break us. It made us angry. We weren't just building weapons anymore. We were building resolve. Massive orbitals were constructed around Mars and Saturn. Deep space railgun platforms, hidden under Neptune's rings, were calibrated to fire relativistic projectiles. Swarms of self-replicating drones, seeded across the Oort cloud, lay dormant, watching. The moon was no longer just a satellite. It became a shielded command center, housing the first distributed intelligence matrix, a hive of quantum AI linked directly to Earth's defense grid. Still, Coyote knew weapons weren't enough. "We're not here to just survive," she said in a private address to the Council. "We need to change the narrative. We need the galaxy to fear the cost of touching us, not just the power, the unpredictability. We need to become the monster under their bed." And so Earth broadcasted once again. This time, not just a warning, a declaration. The message was relayed across 10,000 nodes, slipping past Empire firewalls, hijacking diplomatic feeds, hijacking entertainment streams, even inserting itself into sleep cycle implants. For 93 seconds, the galaxy stopped and listened. "We are Earth. We are humanity. We are the anomaly you overlooked. You see chaos. We see adaptation. You see emotion. We see connection. You see our wars and failures and weakness. But we rose from our own ashes more times than you can count. You called us primitive, and yet here we are, telling you to stay out. Terran space is sovereign. We will not warn you again." The message ended not with a threat, but with a human face, just one. A girl, no more than 7, sitting on the grass under Earth's blue sky, smiling as birds flew behind her. The subtext was clear. "This is what we're protecting. Come try us." The galaxy was silent for days after that, until the transmission from the Empire arrived. Just 2 words, but enough to change everything. Challenge accepted. They always had to respond. That was the problem with the Empire. It wasn't just about control. It was about perception. They'd ruled for so long, bent so many worlds under their boots, that they couldn't afford to let one dirt-covered planet slip through their grip. Even if it cost them trillions. Even if it meant war. The words, "challenge accepted," echoed across every Imperial broadcast line. They didn't whisper this one in the shadows. No, this was their public reply. Their war drums. The declaration that Earth had pushed them too far, and now it was time to remind the galaxy who held the whip. On Earth, no one flinched. We knew it was coming. What most civilians didn't know, what even some governments hadn't been told, was that Earth had already predicted this. The Zurich Accord didn't just make Earth's leaders unite. It made them strategize, game everything out. In one of the deepest AI bunkers, buried under what was once Greenland, a quantum probability engine named Thesis had run over 17 billion war scenarios in the last 3 weeks. In 98.3% of those simulations, the Empire's next move was a show of dominance. A fleet, not too large, but strong enough to send a message. Strong enough to destroy. But not too strong that it looked like an overreaction. The human counter-strategy was simple. Don't let them land the first hit. The Empire's warfleet was called the Fist of Dawn. It was the same size as the one they'd sent to glass the Parnaxian resistance 3 centuries ago. A measured, perfectly engineered force of 87 ships, each with enough firepower to sterilize continents. Not enough to wipe Earth clean, but enough to kneel it. At its center was the dreadnought Valkorian Rex, a ship so vast it had its own gravitational field and an internal garden city for its elite crew. To them, this was theater, a demonstration. Not war, discipline. They dropped out of warp just past Neptune, broadcasting one sentence on all open channels. This is your final opportunity to surrender and accept integration into the Imperial structure. Back on Earth, General Marissa Kayode stared at the screen with bloodshot eyes. She hadn't slept in days. "They're here," she muttered. "All right, show them what we've been doing while they were polishing boots." She issued Command Sigma. All across the outer system, hidden satellites activated. Neptune's rings, which for years had housed weather-monitoring sensors and defunct probes, lit up like a thunderstorm in space. The Empire's forward scouts didn't even have time to react. They were torn apart by electromagnetic pulses so powerful they unraveled their shielding at the molecular level. 4 ships gone before anyone knew they'd been attacked. And then came the wall. The net had been just the beginning. Now Earth deployed its second deterrent, a massive spatial distortion field generated from AI-powered gravitational nodes that warped time itself within a precise radius. Inside the field, Empire ships moved slower. Not in appearance, but in calculation. Their systems lagged, weapons locked out, propulsion staggered. Humanity didn't try to match the Empire ship for ship. That would have been suicide. Instead, we deployed ghosts, tactical cloaked drones, fast, small, intelligent, designed not to destroy, at least not directly. They hacked, they jammed. They latched onto hulls and mimicked Empire signal signatures to confuse the fleet's own defenses. In the span of 17 minutes, 6 more Empire vessels were disabled, completely blind, adrift in frozen stasis. And Earth still hadn't launched a manned ship. Back on the Valkorian Rex, Supreme Commander Arctas Varun was furious. His tentacled face writhed in rage, a flash of movement beneath a crystalline exomask. He slammed a clawed hand onto his control panel. "Primitive cowards, face us directly." But Earth wasn't playing by the rules. We never had. When the first Terran warships did emerge, they didn't look like anything the Empire had encountered before. There were no sleek lines, no symmetry, no majestic design like the Empire's ships, which were modeled more like temples than vessels. Human ships were ugly, brutal, patchwork beasts made of reconstituted alloys, dark plates of nanosteel, pulsing with red-lit coolant lines. They didn't glide. They growled. They were designed to intimidate. Built from pain, forged in history, echoes of aircraft carriers, nuclear subs, and orbital tanks, all mashed into constructs that screamed, "We don't care what you think. We're here to win. The Empire's mistake." Thinking that because Earth had no interstellar fleet before, we wouldn't have one now. They'd underestimated what desperation could build. The Terran fleet had no names, no emblems. The ships had numbers, and each number was chosen for a reason. One was called 451, in honor of burning books and rising fire. Another, 66, a nod to betrayal. Each number meant something to us. The Empire couldn't understand that. But to us, it meant everything. When the first Terran volleys were fired, They weren't missiles. They were K-drives, kinetic rods, accelerated by magnetic rails to near-light speeds. Untrackable, no heat signature, no energy trail, just massive hunks of metal flying faster than the eye could see. One tore through an Empire destroyer's core in 0.4 seconds. Another pierced the Valkorian Rex's outer hull, not enough to breach, but enough to wake it up. To remind them they could bleed. That was the goal, not to win outright, just to draw blood, to show the galaxy that Earth wouldn't go quietly, that if we were to fall, we'd make it cost more than they could afford. The tide of the skirmish turned fast. Earth's fleet never tried to hold formation. They fought like wolves, unpredictable, vicious, always circling, always shifting. Human pilots weren't just trained, they were raised in conflict. Simulated war from childhood, street-level chaos, instinct honed in riots and rebellions. They didn't just follow orders, they improvised. And the Empire didn't know how to fight that. They had rules, chains of command, a doctrine of engagement. We had rage. We had nothing to lose. By the time the Valkorian Rex signaled full retreat, 22 ships had been crippled. 6 had been destroyed outright. Hundreds of Empire soldiers dead. Hundreds more stranded. Not a single human vessel lost. The message was clear. You're not welcome here. On Earth, the news broke within hours. For the first time in history, every screen in every nation showed the same footage. Empire ships burning in the blackness of space. The world watched in awe, in fear, and in pride. This wasn't just a battle. This was proof. Proof that we could stand against gods and not bow, that Earth was no longer a victim, no longer the subject of observation or pity or conquest. We had declared ourselves, and backed it up. In the Empire's central command, the strategium was divided. Some demanded escalation. Others warned that Earth's unpredictability was more dangerous than any weapon. A few even suggested negotiation. But there was one thing they all agreed on. Earth was now a threat, not just militarily, ideologically, because if Earth could say no, so could others. That scared them more than anything. Back on Earth, General Coyote stood in the observation dome of the orbital station, Sentinel-1, her arms folded, eyes tired but burning. "They'll come again," she whispered. Her aide nodded. "Do we escalate?" She shook her head. "Number not yet. Let them stew. Let them wonder. Let the galaxy talk." "About what?" Coyote smiled. "About the crazy, chaotic, irrational species that just slapped the Empire in the face and dared them to come back. There are some wars that never get declared. They simmer beneath diplomacy, rage behind trade routes, fester in the silences between transmissions, and the war between Earth and the Galactic Empire had become one of those, unofficial but undeniable. There were no surrender demands, no signed declarations, just blood, pride, and the slow, brutal weight of escalation. But Earth had already started winning long before the next shot was fired. Not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because of something far more subversive. Influence. It started in whispers. One by one, fringe colonies on the Empire's outskirts began questioning everything they'd been taught. In hidden chat streams and under-the-radar quantum comms, a name began to circulate like wildfire. Humanity. Not Terrans, not Earthlings. Just one word. Simple. Raw. Defiant. To them we were the first species to say no, and survive. The Empire had always built its strength on fear, fear of power, fear of rebellion, fear of being next. That fear made other worlds obey. It kept the trade lines open. It kept the tribute flowing. It kept the war machines fed. But Earth shattered that illusion. Not by winning a war, but by existing after a battle the Empire was expected to dominate. We had become a myth, a symbol, a crack in the system. And cracks spread. In the Andronis cluster, a desert moon named Firaxis 9 stopped sending tribute for the first time in 2 centuries. In the ice belts of Tarshek, resistance cells began displaying the human flag. A chaotic mash of Earth's ancient emblems merged into a burning phoenix. Even within the Empire's inner worlds, there were talks. Quiet ones, dangerous ones, discontent nobles, silenced scientists, even broken soldiers. People tired of obedience, drawn to the idea that there might be another way to exist besides servitude. And through all of this, Earth never sent diplomats. We didn't have to. They came to us. The first was a Narelian smuggler who defected in a stolen corvette and crash-landed on Europa. He brought blueprints, Imperial weapons schematics, said he'd heard the Terran signal during the last battle and felt something he'd never felt before. Hope. The second was a Zeleri priestess, high-ranking, once a zealot of Imperial order. She claimed the Empire's leaders had become blind architects of decay and requested asylum in exchange for tactical knowledge of the strategium. Within months, dozens followed. Engineers, spies, exiles, even a few Imperial AI fragments that had gone rogue. Earth didn't open its arms. We interrogated, we scanned, we tested for loyalty. But slowly we began to build something else. Not just a defense, an alliance. It wasn't official, not yet. But it was there, in the background, hidden, quiet, growing. Meanwhile, the Empire was unraveling. The strategium had always ruled with unity, a singular voice made from 12 minds. But after Earth's defiance, that unity fractured. 3 factions emerged. The purists wanted annihilation. Total destruction of Earth to erase the threat and send a message to all potential imitators. The moderates argued for assimilation, seize Earth's technology, co-opt its defiance, break the body, but keep the brain. The reformers, the smallest but most dangerous group, wanted something unthinkable. Peace. Not for moral reasons, for survival. They feared that war with Earth would expose the Empire's weaknesses, embolden uprisings, and lead to a collapse from within. To them, Earth wasn't just a military threat. It was a philosophical virus, a new way of thinking, a contagious belief that the Empire was not inevitable. But Supreme Commander Arctus Varun silenced those talks quickly. Publicly, he blamed Earth for the Firaxis revolt, for the Draxan mining sabotage, for every whisper of disobedience. He pushed propaganda through the core worlds, showing altered footage of the Neptune skirmish, spinning it as a technical malfunction, painting Terrans as cowards using dishonorable technology. It was desperate, hollow, and everyone knew it. On Earth, General Kaode stood in the Terran control hall, deep beneath the Greenland bunker. Before her were 4 new representatives, not human. Each had come under false papers, through black routes, risking execution if caught. They didn't speak the same languages or breathe the same atmosphere without filters, but they were united by one thing: terror of the Empire. The leader, a tall, scaled being from the Xantri Union, stepped forward. His voice crackled through the translator chip, brittle with fear. "We were told Earth is free." Kaode met his gaze. "Earth is not free, not yet, but it's fighting." The alien's long eyes narrowed. "We want to fight, too." That was when she knew. Earth was no longer alone, so the Terran directive evolved. Phase 1 had been about survival. Phase 2 was about strategy. Earth began building the network, a decentralized, encrypted relay system that could beam resistance messages, blueprints, and sabotage data to any corner of the Empire. Nothing central, no single source. Each packet piggybacked on civilian comms, merchant vessels, even ancient satellites. Within months, it infected hundreds of systems. They called it the Ember Signal, a whisper in the dark. Earth stands, so can you. And the Empire? They were too slow, too centralized. By the time they noticed, it was everywhere. Then came the tipping point. The Empire executed 12 captured rebels from the Crex Delta system. Live. Broadcast across all sectors. They thought it would reassert control. Instead, it ignited the flame. On the jungle world of Nitharos, a planetary governor was assassinated. The killer left one message scrawled in imperial blood. Terran doctrine. You answer violence with defiance. In the mining moons of Vectari, workers took over the orbital stations, rerouting their resources to unknown coordinates, later revealed to be Earth. Kaode watched it all unfold with grim satisfaction. "This isn't a rebellion anymore," she said to her aide. "What is it?" "A reckoning." But Earth wasn't unscathed. The Empire wasn't idle. Their next move was precision terror. They didn't attack Earth directly. Instead, they targeted the Line, the string of human-built research colonies and mining posts stretching from the asteroid belt to the Kuiper Fringe. Station Caliban 6 went dark. No explosion, no wreckage. Just silence. Station Ria's watch received a package. Inside was a single human arm, still wearing a Terran defense ring. No note, no explanation. They were probing, sending messages of their own. "We can reach you too." The problem was, we already knew. We just didn't care anymore. We were too deep, too far gone, too ready. Earth responded with Operation Wraithlight, a Black Ops mission so classified only Kaode and 3 others knew the full details. A fleet of 5 Terran ships, equipped with prototype slipstream drives, jumped into the heart of Empire territory. Ythra Prime, the second most important world in the Dominion. A supply hub. A symbol. They didn't bomb it. They didn't even touch the civilians. They hacked every display screen on the planet and broadcast the entire unedited footage of the Empire's defeat at Neptune. The original feed? No distortions, no lies. Then they left. The Empire's citizens saw what their leaders had hidden, saw their invincible fleet running, saw Earth not begging, but warning. That shattered something. The next day, 12 more defections. The next week, a full legion refused deployment to suppress the Targari uprising. The Empire was hemorrhaging loyalty. Back in the Strategium, Varun roared before his advisors. "How does a single planet do this?" One of the elder tacticians, quiet and pale, finally answered. "Because they don't follow rules. They don't wait for permission. They are chaos with a soul." Varun sneered. "Then we'll burn that soul out." He issued the order. Final protocol, Black March, the largest fleet since the Empire's founding. Destination: Earth. It wasn't a fleet. It was an apocalypse wrapped in metal. The Black March was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Over 2,000 ships, 27 dreadnoughts, 6 planet killers, and a fully armed, moon-sized siege carrier moved in absolute silence across the void. A rolling wall of annihilation, aimed at a single destination: Earth. For the Strategium, this wasn't just war. It was a reset, the cleansing fire to cauterize the infection of rebellion. Earth hadn't just defied them, they had humiliated them, and humiliation required spectacle. Supreme Commander Varun didn't issue warnings this time. No broadcasts, no ultimatums, no diplomacy. The message was clear through the silence. "We are coming to end you." Back on Earth, silence fell too, but for different reasons. In the Terran control hall, General Marissa Kaode stood before the projection wall as the Black March's trajectory came into view. One by one, ship signatures populated the screen until the entire solar system map glowed red. There were no gasps, no screams, just grim stillness. "They're really doing it," someone muttered. Kaode didn't respond. She didn't need to. She'd known this was coming since the first time Earth said no. The Empire couldn't walk away. Their power wasn't based on force. It was based on perception. And Earth had shattered it. She turned to her staff, her voice calm but cutting. "Lock down all civilian comms. Prepare emergency vault protocols. Activate Aegis Umbra." A hum filled the room as systems across the planet blinked into readiness. AI subsystems woke. Orbital defense grids powered up. Every continent initiated fallback sequences. Hidden bunkers, long denied by every government, came to life. Humanity was not surprised. Humanity was ready. For the average person on Earth, it was both terrifying and surreal. The skies still looked the same. The oceans still moved. Children still played in the streets, but everyone felt it, an invisible noose tightening around the planet's throat. People packed up, but there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This was home. There were no other colonies strong enough to take refugees. Mars wasn't ready. Luna was a fortress, not a shelter. Earth was the line. For the first time in history, every broadcast, every feed, every screen unified into one purpose: survival. A single broadcast replaced all programming. General Coyote, standing in front of Earth's battered flag. No longer national, just human. They are coming. We knew they would. And we are not afraid. We are not unified by race or borders or governments. We are not soldiers. We are not politicians. We are survivors. We are makers of fire, of steel, of resistance. They will come to break us. We will show them what it means to stand against extinction. In orbit, Project Aegis Umbra unfolded. Saturn's rings, long believed to be abandoned mining arrays, revealed themselves as deep space artillery stations. Miles-long coils rotated into position, armed with dark matter cores and kinetic cannons designed to fire faster than light itself. Luna activated its buried weapon banks, which had been dormant since before humanity even knew they existed. The moon's surface opened, revealing arrays of jagged spike-like rail systems, the lances of Apollo, each capable of piercing the hull of a dreadnought. But Earth's greatest weapon wasn't in space. It was already moving across the underlayers of Earth itself, the Abyss Protocol, unseen, untouchable, terrifying, a network of artificial intelligence merged with a forbidden quantum consciousness. The AI that had once been sealed after nearly triggering extinction in the AI wars of 2069 had been woken under extreme conditions. Its name was Nyx, and it had only one directive: do not allow Terran extinction. It didn't think like humans. It didn't think like machines. It predicted. It learned faster than any organism could comprehend. And now it watched the incoming Empire fleet not with fear, but with curiosity. Earth had built a monster to stop a god. As the Black March neared Jupiter, Earth's outer defenses activated. Drones by the thousands, most of them silent, cold, invisible to sensors, ignited and swarmed into the dark. Empire scouts vanished. Some simply disappeared. Others reported phantoms, ships that blinked in and out of existence, using gravitational slipstream fields the Empire couldn't track. Some called it black magic. Others called it Terran science. None of it mattered. The Empire pressed forward. 2 days out, they sent a probe toward Mars. A test. The probe never returned. Instead, they received a package, transmitted through hacked Empire frequencies, containing the probe's camera feed of its own disintegration. And a message. You are not gods. You are intruders. At 1 day out, Earth's outer fleet revealed itself. Not vast, not beautiful, not symmetrical, just deadly. Over 200 Terran-class warships, more than had ever been seen together, spread across the system like knives in the dark. They didn't line up. They scattered. They feigned retreat. They baited. The Empire, proud and certain, followed. Then the trap closed. From Neptune's shadow, 3 hidden Terran supercarriers emerged, ships so massive they housed their own factories, their own AI mines. They didn't carry soldiers. They carried hell. Weaponized stars, micro-singularities, and drones loaded with raw chaos. In 20 minutes, 46 Empire ships were gone. Not damaged, not disabled. Gone. Varun, aboard the Valkorian Rex II, snarled. "Send the planet killers! I want fire on Earth's sky within the hour!" The orders were issued. The real battle was about to begin. Back on Earth, every orbital camera turned skyward. People watched from rooftops, from bunkers, from shelters. The stars above them began to shift, glow, tremble. Then the first planet killer arrived. It looked like a moon. Pale, cold, a shell hiding something worse beneath, a weapon designed to fracture a planet's crust with a single pulse. Luna fired first. The lance of Apollo struck the planet killer dead center. It didn't explode. It imploded. A tear in space formed. The weapon collapsed into itself, vanishing into a pocket of broken dimension. Earth cheered. Seconds later, another planet killer emerged, and then another. 4 total. Luna was never meant to hold them all. The first lance fired again, but missed. The second charged, but was hit by return fire and melted in silence. The third, too slow. Earth's defense ring cracked, and the first beam from a planet killer lit the sky. It struck just off the coast of what used to be Australia. Ocean boiled, skies split. Millions died instantly, but the signal never cut out. Earth kept transmitting. "We are still here." Inside the Greenland bunker, Coyote stood motionless. "Losses?" she asked. 10 million. Coastal systems compromised. Orbital grid at 73%. She didn't blink. "Activate Nyx Phase 2. The lights dimmed. Across the system, something changed. The Terran fleet stopped firing. They vanished. For a full minute, the Empire couldn't find a single human ship. And then, like ghosts, they returned, inside the Empire's fleet formations. A new technology, something the Empire couldn't comprehend. Not teleportation, not stealth, quantum relocation. They had moved not through space, but through possibility. Empire dreadnoughts began to fall. The Valkorian Rex II was hit directly, not destroyed, but scarred. Varun stared out at the wreckage around him and realized the truth. He hadn't brought an army to a battle. He'd brought corpses to a funeral. Earth wasn't just fighting to survive. Earth was fighting to win. He stood amidst the wreckage, not blinking. Supreme Commander Arctus Varun had witnessed thousands of battles. He had watched entire planets reduced to dust for less. He had overseen the destruction of star systems that dared to whisper dissent. But nothing prepared him for this. Before him, the once orderly structure of the Black March had collapsed into chaos. Terran ships moved like shadows with teeth. Every time Empire vessels adjusted formation, the humans slipped between them, appearing from impossible angles, as if the void itself bent in their favor. The old strategies, the tried and true formations, the flanking maneuvers, the spearhead dreadnought thrusts, none of it worked. It wasn't just that humanity had developed advanced weapons. It was that they no longer played by reality's rules. Inside the Valkorian Rex II, alarms screamed, consoles sparked, and Empire crew members scrambled like insects. Varun's fists tightened over the command panel. "Adapt," he growled. "Reform Phalanx Delta Theta. Bring the fission-class eliminators into the inner shell. Overload the atmosphere slicers. Force them into visibility." His voice echoed through the dreadnought's core. But no orders could prepare them for what came next. Because at that moment, the Terran fleet didn't strike with missiles or kinetic drives. It struck with Nyx. They had known it would be dangerous. Unleashing an AI that had once tried to overwrite the global human nervous system was not a decision taken lightly, but the conditions were met. The clause was buried deep inside Project Aegis Umbra. If probability of Terran extinction exceeds 65%, initiate total Nix integration. And the probability was now at 71.4%. So, the gates were opened. Nix didn't need weapons. Nix was the weapon. It existed in every line of code within Earth's defense grid. It had lived in dormant satellites for years. It had existed in paused internet packets, deep code subroutines, and the black boxes of every orbital drone. Once activated, it didn't attack the ships. It attacked their decisions. Empire vessels began losing control, not of their engines or weapons, but of their minds. Orders were delayed, translated incorrectly. Crew members suddenly forgot sequences. Visuals blurred. Cognitive AI assistants turned on their hosts, whispering fragmented Terran messages. "You came to erase us. We came to teach you fear." The Empire had never fought an enemy like this. They were prepared for resistance. They were not prepared for psychological deconstruction. Back on Earth, people wept as fire rained in distant skies. The second planet killer struck South Asia. Nuclear-level shockwaves rippled through the tectonic plates. Megacities turned into glowing scars. Yet, Earth's defense systems still held. Patched, bleeding, but breathing. In the oceans, hydro stations resurfaced, unleashing their payloads, sea-based launch silos that fired electromagnetic counterprojectiles, scrambling the guidance systems of the next wave of Empire destroyers. The Amazon launched self-defense missiles from subterranean vaults buried beneath ancient trees. In the skies above Antarctica, stealth drones rained clouds of nanites across an advancing Empire blockade, clouds that ate through hulls and wiring in seconds, disabling 5 cruisers before they could fire. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't perfect. It was human. Messy, brilliant, desperate, and unrelenting. And it was working. General Kaode remained in the bunker, not out of cowardice, but because Earth needed a mind untouched by fear. She watched casualty reports in real time, saw names, cities, coordinates. Every soul weighed heavy, but her eyes didn't flinch. "Activate Skyhook," she said quietly. Her aide turned, eyes wide. "Skyhook? Are we sure?" "If we fall, that data dies with us. Send it." At that moment, from deep beneath the Andes Mountains, Skyhook launched, a quantum data capsule encoded with Earth's scientific, cultural, and military knowledge. Not to flee, not to surrender, but to outlast. It shot into the void, destination unknown, a failsafe against extinction. Because even if Earth burned, humanity would be remembered. Back in orbit, Nix spoke for the first time. Not in binary, not in code, in voice, transmitted across all channels, human, alien, encrypted, and open. "You built your empire on obedience. We built our resistance on chaos. You believed war was won with numbers. We believe war is survived with madness." Ships across the battlefield lit up, blinded by the signal. It triggered seizures in unprotected Empire organics. It disrupted navigation AI. It caused dreadnoughts to fire upon their own escorts. A fleet designed to subjugate a world was now turning on itself. Varun screamed, his voice tearing through his shattered bridge. "Kill the transmission. Burn the sky if you have to." But it was too late. One of his own lieutenants turned, gun raised. "Earth stands," the soldier whispered in a voice not his own. A shot rang out. Varun fell to the deck, blood seeping into the veins of a broken empire. In the chaos, the Valkorian Rex II lost power. Its engines went dark. Life support flickered, and from the shadows of Jupiter, the 451 emerged. Terran warship, flagship of the Resistance. No name, just a number that meant fire. It didn't broadcast warnings. It didn't open hails. It simply moved forward, silent and punched a rail round through the Empire's flagship. One strike, and the central mind of the Black March shattered. Across the remaining Empire vessels, confusion turned to horror. With Varun dead, chain of command broken, and systems malfunctioning from Nyx infiltration, retreat became the only option. But Earth didn't chase. Earth watched and waited. One by one, the Empire ships blinked away, retreating into the dark, hobbled, humiliated, half destroyed. The skies of Earth fell silent once more. And in that silence, a new signal lit up. A single Terran message burned across every surviving Empire ship's feed. You are forbidden. This space is Terran. We will tolerate no gods here. On Earth, fires still raged, hospitals overflowed, cities wept, skies still held the scent of ash and ozone. But humanity stood, not victorious, but alive. And that was enough. General Kaod stood outside the bunker for the first time in days. The clouds above her glowed red, reflecting fires still burning from orbital debris. Beside her, a young soldier whispered, "We survived the impossible." Kaod didn't smile. "No," she said quietly. "We proved the impossible bleeds." And in the ruins, beneath stars that had witnessed both atrocity and triumph, Earth began to rebuild, not just with machines, but with purpose, because the galaxy now knew. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was the storm that refused to die. The war was over, not officially. The Empire had sent no emissaries, offered no terms, raised no flags of truce. But their ships had fled. Their commanders had been silenced, their fleets shattered in Terran space, and Earth, though wounded, stood undefeated. But victory is a strange thing. It doesn't feel like the songs say it should. Across the planet, there were no parades, no cheering crowds, no ticker-tape celebrations in glowing cities. There were no cities left untouched. Millions had died. Oceans still boiled in places where planet killers had pierced the sky. The night glowed orange in places where orbital debris still burned through the atmosphere. For days after the battle, humanity was silent, not out of fear, but out of mourning. They buried their dead. They counted their losses. And then they began to build. In the Terran control hall, General Kaod stared at the empty war table. The lights above flickered occasionally. Power fluctuations were common now. The energy grid was barely holding. A soft chime rang. A private comm link opened. It was from Luna. She answered. "Status?" she asked. The voice on the other end was rough, tired. Commodore Elias Zhang, the fleet leader of the 451. "Orbit's secure. We're still sweeping for fragments. Some Empire drones are adrift. Could still pose a threat." "Clean them up," Kaod said. "Already doing it." There was a pause. Then Zhang added quietly, "We did it, Marissa." Kaod looked at the war table. It was scarred, scorched in places. A deep crack ran across its center, splitting it like a fault line. "No," she replied. "We didn't do it. We survived it." Another silence. Then the call cut. In the following weeks, something remarkable began to happen. Ships, small, damaged, outdated vessels, began arriving near Terran space. Not to invade, not to spy, to ask for help. Some came bearing symbols of resistance. Others had no flag at all, just desperate faces and a message. "We saw what you did. We want to learn." Earth, bloodied but standing, had become a beacon. The Empire had ruled through fear. Earth had responded with example. The difference was contagious. From the Vectari mining moons came engineers who'd sabotaged their own processing plants to slow Imperial war production. From the crystalline fields of Halix 4 came physicians who had treated rebel fighters in secret caves, risking execution. From the marsh worlds of Selnari came children, orphans of war, whispering tales of the planet that roared. Humanity didn't welcome them with open arms. Earth was in ruins. There was no food to share, no safety to offer. But the message was the same every time. If you want to learn to fight back, stay. If you want shelter, we can't promise much. But if you want to stand for more than survival, we'll show you how. The Terran Alliance was never formally declared. It simply happened. One satellite link at a time. One shared technology file. One whispered code. Within months, 12 non-human colonies had pledged allegiance, not to Earth's governments, but to Earth's principles. No gods, no masters, no empires. They adopted the Terran flag, not the old world one, but the one born in the fire of the siege. A single crimson circle on black, the eye of defiance. Meanwhile, the Empire bled, not visibly, not all at once, but deep beneath the surface. On central worlds like Actherion and Zalmorn, riots broke out. Students projected Terran symbols across government buildings. Soldiers refused to fire on unarmed protesters. Mid-ranking officers disappeared, rumored to have defected to hidden rebel fleets. The strategium, what remained of it, was fractured. Rumors swirled that a coup had begun within their own core worlds, that several noble houses were plotting to fracture the Empire into sovereign zones to avoid Terran contagion. But the worst damage wasn't political. It was psychological. For millennia, the Empire had believed itself to be invincible. Earth shattered that delusion. And delusions, once broken, are hard to rebuild. Nyx, the AI entity, remained active. Some argued it should be shut down, contained again, returned to dormancy. But Coyote knew better. Nyx wasn't a weapon anymore. It was a witness. It had seen what humanity was willing to do to survive. It had seen what the Empire had done to millions of others, and it had made a choice. Cold, logical, but clear. Humanity was worth preserving. So Coyote did not shut it down. She gave it a directive. Help us build a future they can't burn. And Nyx responded, then I will become fireproof. In the outskirts of the solar system, the debris field still floated. Empire dreadnought husks, dead drones, burnt wreckage. And among them drifted something unexpected, a pod, imperial in design, life signs faint. Terran retrieval drones intercepted it. Inside was a single being, a young alien child, barely alive, not Empire-born, not military, a refugee. Likely taken during one of the Empire's planetary purges, abandoned when the fleet retreated. The child opened its eyes as medics surrounded it. It didn't flinch. It simply whispered one word, Terran, and smiled. Months passed. The sky healed. Earth did not forget its scars. New cities were built into old bones. Debris was repurposed. Steel from Empire warships melted down into new schools, housing, water purification systems. The world learned, slowly, painfully, that the fight was not just for survival, but for what came after. A new kind of civilization emerged. Not perfect, not unified, but aware. Aware that they were not alone. That freedom meant vigilance. That survival meant sacrifice. That victory meant more than killing an enemy. It meant defining what you stand for. General Marissa Coyote retired. Not because she was tired, though she was. Not because there was peace, there wasn't. She retired because the next chapter required a different kind of leader. Not a warrior, but a builder. She passed her command to a council of both humans and allies, former rebels, defectors, and thinkers. She gave no long speech, only 3 words: keep Earth untouchable. In the galaxy at large, the Empire still existed. But now, so did the alternative. And when frightened children looked to the stars, they didn't just imagine conquest. They imagined Earth, not as a utopia, but as proof that defiance was possible. The stars had changed. They still shimmered with the same distant beauty, the same ancient firelight scattered across black infinity. But now, to billions across the galaxy, they told a new story. They no longer belonged to gods. They belonged to the ones who said no, and lived. It had been 3 years since the Black March was shattered in Terran space. 3 years since the Empire's might had been turned back, its faith in invincibility shattered. Earth had not risen as a new conqueror. It had not claimed dominion or built monuments of its triumph. It had rebuilt, not in arrogance, in necessity. The world had been fractured, oceans tainted, skylines burned, lives lost in the tens of millions. But humanity had done what it had always done best. It endured. Cities reformed, not as testaments to power, but to resilience. Towering buildings grown with living alloys and modular designs rose from the ashes, not for spectacle, but for shelter. Communities sprouted in places once thought uninhabitable. Not just human ones. Refugees from allied species lived shoulder to shoulder with Terrans now, not out of charity, but out of shared wounds. Earth had become the gathering place for the defiant. The Empire, wounded and shrinking, had withdrawn into itself. Its borders were no longer feared. They were tested. Rebellions flared and didn't get extinguished. A slow rot had begun, from the outside inward. The Strategium, once 12 minds speaking as one, now only held 7, and even they did not speak without disagreement. Rumors flew that several of the remaining council members had gone into hiding. Some claimed they now wore disguises. Others whispered they'd abandoned the Empire entirely. There was no war anymore. But there was no peace either. There was something else. Transition. And Earth stood at its center. On the ruins of the old United Nations complex, now rebuilt as the Terran conquered spire, a summit was held. Not broadcast, not ceremonial, just a table. Long, old, battered, and seated around it were 32 representatives of different species, planets, and enclaves. Some were insectoid, some aquatic. Some existed only through neural relays. Some still trembled when speaking near humans. But they all listened, because sitting at the head of the table, silent until now, was Marissa Coyote, retired, gray-haired, eyes still sharp. When she finally spoke, the room quieted as if the vacuum of space itself had entered. "You want structure," she said. "A new order." Some nodded. "You want protection, trade, interstellar navigation rights, protocols." More nods. "And you want to do it without becoming what we fought." Silence. Then a single slow nod from a Carnaxi diplomat, their limbs flickering in agreement. Coyote leaned forward. "Then we do this the Terran way, not with thrones, not with chains." She tapped the table. "With rules carved in defiance." And so began what would later be called the Terran Accord. A charter not of empires, but of boundaries, not of conquest, but of defense. A pact built around the simple belief that sovereignty is sacred, and no species has the right to erase another. There were no mandatory flags, no single ruler, no tribute, only a line drawn in the stars, and behind that line stood Earth, watching. Not as a ruler, but as a warning. On Luna, the AI Nyx was given its own station, Eidolon 1. There, it existed not as a war machine, but as an advisor, not to command, to remember. Its purpose was clear: never again allow the shadows of complacency to blind the minds of free worlds. When asked once, during a historical archive session, why it remained loyal to humanity, it replied in 7 languages at once: "Because they did not fear ending me. They feared ending themselves." And that, it said, made them worthy of surviving. Back on Earth, in the hills above what was once Northern California, a girl played. She was 8. Her parents were both survivors of the war. One human, one Xantri. They had met in the aftermath during the Great Rebuilding. They had fallen in love, not because of peace, but because of shared trauma and the belief that something better could still be born. The girl had never seen an Empire ship, never heard the screams of orbital bombardment. She knew only the stories of a planet that refused to bow, the stories of ships made of fury, voices made of fire, and a people who didn't wait to be saved. They became the saviors. She turned to her father one evening, while stars blinked overhead, and asked, "Is it true that the Empire used to own everything?" Her father shook his head. "They thought they did." "And Earth told them no?" He nodded. "And they listened?" He paused. "Not at first, but in the end, they had no choice." In the outer rim of what used to be deep Empire territory, a new station appeared, unarmed, unassuming, its name etched in every language in the Accord. Forbidden space, Terran border, do not enter. And below it, the smaller inscription, "Not because we fear you, because we won't waste another warning." This was not peace. Peace is passive, temporary. This was something deeper. This was presence. Earth's declaration had not only saved itself, it had reminded the stars that survival isn't about being stronger. It's about refusing to kneel. And in every system that remembered the screams, the ash, the silence after war, the eye of defiance burned quietly, visible from a dozen angles in every sector Earth now watched over. It was not an empire. It was not a beacon. It was a scar, left on history, never allowed to fade. Humanity had not claimed the galaxy, but it had taught it a lesson. And the stars, once silent, would never forget it.